Take her up there.
And on the western
And she'll
slopes of the
settle.
Pennines. And you might also spot the pony. When you ride them, they feel like a horse because they are enormous. But they only stand 14 hands at the shoulder or less. And 14 hands is 143 centimetres if you think in metric, or 4 foot 8 in old money. That's measured up to the top of the shoulder, the highest point when they've got their heads down grazing. Part of our fell ponies that we love is the fact that they've been here for thousands of years. You've probably seen them featured on Country File a couple of weeks ago, seen them out on the fell on the television. That will keep the breed looking as it does. You may also see them, if you're going home down the M6 southwards, as you go past T-Bay and you look west to the Howgill Fells, you will also see fell ponies running wild up there. People rode ponies, whether they were going out to look after the sheep or the cattle, or whether they were fighting to keep the land that the animals were grazing on. That's what they did. They had ponies, so that's what they rode. Ooh, we're going to have some excitement here. We probably all... He's not quite right. You can hear what's happening. Our fell ponies being clever and not going lame was very important because for hundreds of years there were very few decent roads around here. You travel across country, you tick off the miles steadily and won't go lame. Now that's quite important because for a long, long time, hundreds of years, there were very few roads around here, and even the main routes were a great deal rougher than what we call a road these days. Some of the routes were just tracks or footpaths across the hills from farm to farm and village to village. If you've been trekking your way around this show field today, after all the rain we had on Friday, you will know it's not always easy. And if you haven't got roads, it's not really possible to use carts because they get stuck in the mud. Even if you've got four-wheel drive, you get stuck in the mud here. So you either carry the load on your own back, or you put it on the back of a fell pony. And so for hundreds of years, that was what fell ponies did best, carrying stuff. Our pack pony handler is Christine Robinson with Linnell Doublet. As you can see, he is not black, he is bay. One of the colours that we are allowed, it's one of the oldest colours in the fell pony breed. Now the wool on the pony's back would go from the farm to the mill, and the cloth that the mills made would then go to the towns to be used to make clothes. Knitted stockings went from little villages like Dent into the cities for people to wear. And from the cities, the pack ponies would bring back pottery and fancy goods and bring it back to the local area for use on the farms and in the villages. There was a lot of mining going on, lead, copper or silver, that went from the mines to the smelter. So when you cut the grass in summer to save it for hay to use during the winter time, you would drag the crop in from the fields to the barn, and very often you would pile that hay on a sledge. That's not because Cumbria hadn't invented the wheel, it's because a sledge is safe. Because it's very low to the ground, it doesn't turn over on a side slope. And as you know, we've got an awful lot of hills around here. The sledge is being pulled by Murthwaite's Seiko 308 with Catherine Savage at the reins. Another job they would do in the early autumn, when the bracken turned brown with the first frost, you'd go out to cut it for bedding for the cattle. And then of course you'd bring it back on your sledge. And the quarries that produce slate, they used to send slate down from the quarries on sledges. And an experienced pony could take a sledge wherever it was needed without touching the walls, even on narrow roads. They knew what they were doing. And obviously, we still have ponies doing this kind of work, using strength and intelligence to get a difficult load safely to where it's wanted. On the other side of the arena, coming down the bottom of the bank now, we've got Scottgate Midnight Rebel, working for the Ellis family, as a logging pony. Now there are lots of woodlands on steep slopes, and with difficult access, where horses can bring out the timber more efficiently and do less damage than heavy machine competition. This is Paul Metcalf, driving green home deck to a modern pleasure driving carriage. It's pneumatic tired, it's a four-wheel vehicle made of aluminium and steel. Paul's used this for weddings. You can see he's picked one that's painted white so he can do weddings with it. And he took it to the Fell Pony Show, the breed show at Dale, Maine 2 weeks ago, and came out top. He was the winning pony. When I first came to Lowther, there were fell ponies competing. There was Anne Varley with Calgarth Brown Jack. There was Jim Bell with Waverhead Magic. We had even a national champion who drove a park-bred fell. Fred Todd drove a horse called Tom Kidd, which was a fell cross thoroughbred. And he was national champion in 1973. He drove here, and of course, His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh has driven here many times with a team of 4 fell ponies. I've even seen him spectating, driving a tandem of fell ponies around here. Of course, they also do a great deal of pleasure riding, all sorts. They're the much-loved friends of pleasure riders right across the world, from Great Britain to many countries in Europe, also in North America and Russia and Australia. We've got people who take them into competitive riding, endurance and pleasure rides, in a concours d'elegance class. Isn't that a gorgeous dress? This is what it is to have a talented mother who can make you lovely costumes. You can ride concours classes either astride, the way Alison's doing today, or side saddle. You can wear a beautiful costume like this, and I know several people who make the most fantastic costumes for doing concours classes. Or you can wear traditional riding clothes. The class itself is judged on the overall picture of elegance presented by the horse or pony and its rider. It includes their overall appearance, the horse's conformation as you would in a show class, and woo! It's in a show. That was an unusual flicker. Would you like to do that again? We're aiming for an overall picture of elegance. Ideally, you want to be the horse and rider that the judge would most like a painting of over their fireplace. It's been here for over 30 years and it's mainly been used with a fell pony. You can pack a lot of goods into market carts like this. I mean, if you put a net over the back, you could even carry piglets or poultry. The other vehicle with the pair going in the opposite direction, you've just seen them in action in the Lowther Challenge. This is Jackie Parkinson driving Tyne Bank Danny Boy and Tyne Bank Brown Bobby. And they've been competing in the Lowther trials. And as you can see, marathon vehicles today look entirely different from the traditional wooden ones of days gone by. But they're built for a purpose just as the other vehicle was. And this purpose here, I'm going really fast.
So you swore.
Yeah. One of the great qualities of fell ponies is their enthusiasm for getting out and about, and historically travelling extremely long distances. They not only did it as pack ponies in peacetime, but in wartime they had to carry soldiers on campaign and arrive fit for battle. And then of course there was always a case of, well, your pony's quite fast, is yours faster than mine, let's have a race. And in 1701 there was a man called Sinclair who was so convinced of his fell pony's endurance that he wagered he could ride it 1,000 miles in 1,000 hours. In case you're trying to do the mental arithmetic, 1,000 hours is about 6 weeks. They went round and round the old Carlisle racecourse. They did it inside the time limit, but how bored they both were by the end, I'm afraid the history books don't tell us. Endurance events take place over 1 or 2 days. And in 2008, a bolshy little fell pony called Southholm Blossom became a fell pony legend when she completed the Scottish Caledonia Challenge and achieved 100 miles in just under 18 hours. So you can see, ponies are tough. They are not little fat things necessarily, they can be just as fit and fast as a thoroughbred. Thank you very much. Well, these guys, they are pony club members. They're just going to practice. They're going to do us a relay race. So Jack's, I think, going to go first. Is that right? Are you ready, Jack? On your marks, get set, go! We're doing bending. Woo, come on, Jack. And a quick turn at the bottom there, and then run for home. And a quick hand over to Georgia. We haven't got this down to a fine art yet, but I'm sure by the end of the day we will have. Away you go, Georgia. Fell ponies are a little bit on the big side. They're probably a lot bigger than the ponies you saw this morning during the mountain games, because you've got to do so much jumping on and off. But there are smaller ones, and there's one that's done extremely well recently. There's a pony called Aylstone the Merry Monk, fantastic name, who was good enough to represent Great Britain in 2012 in an international mountain games competition throughout the British Isles. They went over to Ireland to compete. He's done extremely well. In a real show ring, of course, these ponies would do their shows individually for the judge to assess. But because we've got a huge ring and lots of people watching, we thought we'd ask them to do their shows at the same time. There's quite a lot of tradition in what we ask them to do in a show ring. We want to see a pony that's really well made and it's going to stay sound.
By the grey team of Daniel Napros. Daniel Napros is, of course, of the Devil's Horseman fame. The Devil's Horseman on a bit later this afternoon, which is just being held just while Barnaby clears the obstacle.
And as Daniel Napru goes into the final obstacle, we have the Fell Ponies' Tree Bessie Bell, written by Philippa Dawson Coates, who's going to show you some of the nice light forward movement that you can expect to see in the dressage arena. Thing is, you don't have to buy an expensive Dutch warm blood. You can find that a Fell Pony will score just as well if its training is correct. And although we're asking our ponies now to do all sorts of things that they weren't historically asked to do, all the things that they could do, they're still being able to do. Fell ponies are still used as pack horses in support of country sports. They carry game down from the hill. They carry equipment for the National Trust to maintain footpaths on the high fells. They go galloping and jumping. They've completed immensely long rides from one end of the country to the other, raising money for cancer research. People use them in trekking or carriage driving businesses. And Her Majesty the Queen rides Fell ponies, and Prince Philip's driven them here many times. Most of all, people ride Fell ponies for fun, because they are fun. They're intelligent, they're funny, and they're kind. And what more could you ask for in a friend? If you'd like to know more about Fell ponies, please come and find the Fell Pony Society tent down here by the riverside.